The huge metal doors of the Galactic Council chamber opened with a deep sound that made Jake Morrison feel small. He walked next to Ambassador Lisa Rodriguez, their footsteps echoing in the massive room. Above them, the ceiling stretched so high, it seemed to touch the stars themselves. Jake had been a soldier for 15 years, but nothing had prepared him for this moment. Around the circular chamber sat beings from 47 different worlds. Some looked like giant insects with many eyes. Others were made of living crystal that sparkled when they moved. A few floated in tanks of green water, watching through the glass with fins that never stopped moving. Lisa squeezed his arm gently. She was nervous too, though she tried not to show it. As Earth's top diplomat, she had spent months preparing for this day. Today, the Galactic Council would decide if humans were ready to join the bigger community of space-traveling species. The speaker of the council was a creature called Vextal, from the planet Zephyr. It stood 12 feet tall and looked like it was made from blue-white crystal. When it spoke, its voice sounded like wind chimes in a storm. "We have watched the species called humans for 3 of your years," Vextal announced. "We have studied your people, your culture, and your abilities. Today we will tell you what we have learned." Jake looked around the room. Every alien face was turned toward them. Some looked curious. Others seemed bored. A few appeared to be laughing, though it was hard to tell with creatures that had no mouths. "The human species shows promise in some areas," Vextal continued. "You build interesting machines, you tell good stories, you care for your young." The crystal being paused and the chamber became very quiet. "However, you lack the abilities that make a species truly advanced." Captain Ryan Brooks stood behind Jake and Lisa. He was Earth's military representative, a man who had fought in 3 wars and never backed down from a fight. But even he felt his heart sink as the alien continued speaking. "You have no natural telepathic gifts," said a creature that looked like a giant octopus floating in a bubble of water. "My people, the Narions, can speak mind to mind across vast distances. We share thoughts and feelings as easily as you share words." Another alien, this one shaped like a walking tree with silver bark, spoke next. "The synthetics among us can talk directly to machines. Our ships obey our thoughts. Our computers understand our wishes before we speak them. Humans must push buttons and type commands like primitive children." Jake felt his face get hot with anger, but Lisa put a warning hand on his shoulder. Getting mad would only prove their point. A being that looked like a giant spider made of metal clicked its legs together before speaking. "The eternal ones among us live for thousands of your years. We gather wisdom over centuries. Humans live barely 100 years. You die before you can learn true understanding." Dr. Amy Chen stood with the human group, taking notes on everything she heard. She was a scientist who studied alien life, and she had spent months learning about the different species in the council. As she listened to their words, she noticed something interesting. All of these aliens talked about what they could do naturally, things they were born with. But none of them talked about learning new things or solving problems. Vextal raised one crystal arm, and the chamber became quiet again. "The council has made its decision. Humans are not ready to join the greater galactic community. You are what we call a protected primitive species." The words hit Jake like a punch to the stomach. Lisa's face went pale. Ryan's hand moved toward his weapon before he remembered where he was. "This means several things," the speaker continued. "First, humans may not leave their home solar system without permission. Second, humans may not build colonies on other worlds. Third, humans may not have access to advanced military technology. Fourth, humans may only trade for basic supplies and simple machines." An alien that looked like a giant butterfly with rainbow wings spoke in a voice like singing bells. "We do this to protect you. The galaxy is dangerous for species that cannot defend themselves properly. You will be safe in your small corner of space." Jake wanted to shout that humans had been fighting and surviving for thousands of years. They had climbed out of caves and built cities. They had crossed oceans and reached for the stars. But the aliens saw them as children who needed babysitters. "You may visit other worlds as guests," Vextal added. You may learn from us. Perhaps in a few hundred years, when you have evolved beyond your current limitations, we will reconsider. The meeting continued for another hour, but Jake barely heard the rest. The aliens talked about trade agreements and visitation rights, but all he could think about was the look of disappointment on Lisa's face. When it was over, the human delegation was escorted to a small room to discuss their response. Jake paced back and forth while Lisa sat at a table with her head in her hands. They think we're pets, Ryan said quietly. Cute animals that might learn tricks if we're patient enough. Amy looked up from her notes. I don't think they understand us at all, she said. They keep talking about what we can't do, but they never asked what we can do. Lisa raised her head. What do you mean? They can read minds, so they never learn to really listen to each other. They live forever, so they never learn to make the most of limited time. They can talk to machines, so they never learn to fix things when they break. Amy's eyes were bright with an idea. They think their natural gifts make them superior. But what if those gifts made them weak in ways they don't even know? Jake stopped pacing. You think we have advantages they don't? I think we have something they lost a long time ago, Amy said. We know how to adapt. We know how to overcome problems. We know how to make something out of nothing. Outside their small room, the aliens continued their meeting, confident they had made the right choice. They had no idea that their biggest mistake was just beginning. 6 months had passed since the Galactic Council locked humans inside their own solar system. Most people on Earth felt angry and hurt by the decision, but Director Mike Campbell had a different idea. He called it the Workaround Initiative. Mike stood in front of a room full of Earth's best scientists, engineers, and military officers. The meeting was held in an underground facility in Colorado, far from alien eyes that might be watching. They think we're weak because we can't read minds or live forever, Mike said to the group. They think we need their protection. Well, let's show them what humans can really do. Colonel Sarah Johnson was the first to speak up. She was a tough woman who had trained soldiers for 20 years. What exactly are you asking us to do, Mike? I'm asking you to make humans better, Mike replied. Not with alien technology, not with magical powers, with pure human determination and smart thinking. Sarah smiled for the first time in months. I can work with that. Within weeks, Sarah had started training programs that pushed human bodies and minds harder than ever before. Soldiers learned to communicate without radios using complex hand signals and body language. They practiced moving together like one person, even when they couldn't talk to each other. The aliens had telepathy, but humans learned to read faces, voices, and tiny movements that told them what their teammates were thinking. It took longer to learn, but it worked just as well. Dr. Kevin Martinez worked in a different building, trying to solve the energy problem. The aliens could control power with their minds, moving electricity and heat however they wanted. Humans had to build machines to do the same thing. Kevin's team worked day and night, creating mechanical systems that could copy what aliens did naturally. They built devices that could focus energy, redirect power, and even create force fields. The machines were bigger and louder than alien powers, but they worked. The best part, Kevin told his assistant, is that our machines can be fixed when they break. If an alien loses their natural power, there's nothing they can do about it. Engineer Beth Thompson had perhaps the hardest job. The council had given humans only basic mining equipment and simple tools. They weren't allowed to have advanced manufacturing systems. But Beth found ways around these rules. She took apart the mining equipment and rebuilt it into something completely different. The aliens had approved a machine that could dig holes in rocks. Beth turned it into a device that could cut metal, shape parts, and build complex structures. Technically, it was still the same machine, but it could do 100 times more than before. The aliens wrote rules for what we couldn't have, Beth explained to her team. But they didn't think to write rules about what we could do with what they gave us. Pilot Dan Roberts was working on the flying problem. Human ships were called primitive by the Council. They couldn't match the speed or grace of alien vessels. But Dan discovered that primitive didn't mean useless. Dan and his squadron practiced flying maneuvers that should have been impossible with their basic ships. They learned to use gravity, momentum, and physics in ways that surprised even themselves. Their ships might be slower, but they could move in patterns that confused alien observers. An alien pilot thinks with their ship, Dan told his wingman during practice. The ship becomes part of their body, but if something goes wrong with that connection, they're helpless. We have to think about flying every second, which means we notice things they miss. All of this activity was being watched by Council observer Zilketh, a creature that looked like a giant praying mantis with too many arms. Zilketh's job was to make sure humans followed the rules and didn't try to become dangerous. At first, Zilketh's reports were confident. The humans were staying in their solar system. They weren't building weapons that violated the agreements. They seemed to be accepting their place as a protected species, but as months passed, Zilketh's reports became worried. The humans weren't breaking any rules, but they were doing things that made the rules meaningless. They were finding ways around every limitation without actually crossing any lines. The humans have modified their mining equipment, Zilketh reported to the Council. But technically, it is still mining equipment. They have improved their communication methods, but they are not using telepathy. They have enhanced their ships, but they are still the same basic designs we approved. Captain Lisa Carter was causing the most concern. Her exploration ship had been mapping every rock, moon, and piece of space dust in the human solar system. This was allowed under the treaty, but the level of detail was extreme. Lisa's team knew more about their own solar system than most species knew about their home planets. They had found resources, mapped gravitational fields, and discovered things that had been missed for centuries. Why are they learning so much about such a small area? Zilketh wondered in another report. Most species explore outward, looking for new worlds. The humans are exploring inward, learning everything about what they already have. The answer came from Dr. Amy Chen, who was still studying alien behavior. She had realized something important about the advanced species in the Council. They rely on their natural gifts so much that they never learn to be creative, Amy explained to Mike Campbell. A telepathic species doesn't need to develop complex communication. A long-lived species doesn't need to work quickly. A species that can control energy doesn't need to build efficient machines. So their advantages made them lazy? Mike asked. Not lazy, Amy corrected. Predictable. They do things the same way they've always done them because their natural abilities work. But humans have to find new solutions to every problem. We've been practicing creative thinking for our entire history. Mike nodded slowly, and now we're applying that creative thinking to their restrictions. Exactly. They gave us rules thinking we would give up. Instead, we're treating their rules like puzzles to solve. By the end of the year, the Galactic Council was receiving reports that made them uncomfortable. The humans weren't becoming the grateful, protected species they had expected. Instead, they were becoming something the aliens didn't understand, something that might be dangerous. The alarm siren screamed across every world in the galaxy. Something terrible had emerged from the dark space between stars, and it was eating everything in its path. Fleet Admiral Rick Davis was drinking coffee in his office on Earth's moon base when the emergency message arrived. The signal came from the Galactic Council, the same aliens who had called humans too primitive to leave their solar system. Admiral Davis, the message began, we need your help immediately. Rick almost choked on his coffee. 6 months ago, these same beings had treated humans like children. Now they were begging for assistance. The message continued with details that made Rick's blood run cold. The Void Swarm had appeared at the edge of known space 3 weeks ago. It looked like a massive cloud of mechanical insects, each one the size of a building. The swarm moved from planet to planet, taking apart everything it found and using the materials to build more of itself. Our psychic attacks do nothing, the Council message explained. Our energy weapons are absorbed and turned against us. Our bio-integrated technology is infected and controlled by the swarm. We have lost 17 colonies in 3 weeks. Rick called an emergency meeting with Earth's top military leaders. Commander Kate Wilson arrived first, still wearing her flight suit from training exercises. She was the best pilot in the human fleet, Someone who could make their basic ships dance through space like living things. They want our help? Kate asked when Rick explained the situation. The same aliens who said we were too weak to protect ourselves. That's exactly right, Rick replied. And we're going to give it to them. Dr. Chris Bailey rushed into the meeting, carrying a box of metal fragments. He was a scientist who studied alien technology, and he looked more excited than scared. I've been analyzing these pieces for months, Chris said, dumping the fragments on the table. They're parts of the void, swarm that drifted into our solar system. I think I know why the aliens can't fight them. Chris picked up a piece of twisted metal that seemed to shift and change as they watched. The swarm was designed to fight advanced species. It adapts to telepathic attacks by blocking mental signals. It absorbs energy weapons and uses that power to grow stronger. It takes over bio-integrated technology by infecting the biological parts. But we don't use any of those things, Kate realized. Exactly, Chris said. Our technology is purely mechanical. Our weapons are ballistic and explosive. Our communication is electronic, not telepathic. The swarm has never encountered anything like human technology. Within hours, Kate was leading the first human fleet beyond the Sol system in almost a year. The Council had given them emergency permission to break the treaty, but only because they were desperate. Kate's ships were small and crude compared to alien vessels. They had no shields powered by mental energy, no weapons that responded to thought, no computers that could think for themselves. But they had something the swarm had never seen before. The first battle took place near a mining colony on the edge of Narration space. The void swarm had surrounded the planet like a dark cloud, slowly eating the surface and converting it into more machines. Lieutenant Alex Turner flew his fighter into the swarm, expecting the worst. His ship was old and slow, armed with simple missiles and energy guns that any alien would consider primitive. But the swarm machines didn't know how to fight him. They tried to hack his computer systems but found only basic programming with no artificial intelligence to corrupt. They tried to absorb his energy weapons, but his guns used a different type of power that their systems couldn't process. They tried to predict his movements, but Alex was flying by instinct and training, not following any logical pattern. Alex's missiles punched through swarm machines like they were made of paper. His energy guns burned holes in their hulls. Most importantly, when he destroyed one machine, it didn't adapt or learn from the attack. The swarm was designed to evolve against advanced threats, not primitive ones. This is incredible, Alex reported over the radio. They can't touch me. It's like they don't even see me as a real threat. The battle lasted 6 hours. When it was over, the human fleet had destroyed more swarm machines than all the alien forces combined had managed in 3 weeks. Back on Earth, Dr. Chris Bailey was making an even more frightening discovery. He had been studying the swarm fragments for months without telepathic interference or energy-based scanning equipment. Using simple tools and careful observation, he had learned something the advanced aliens had missed. The void swarm isn't some natural disaster, Chris reported to Admiral Davis. It was created by an intelligent species, and I know what species it was. Chris pulled up images on his computer, comparing swarm technology to information from the Galactic Council archives. The beings who made this swarm had all the same abilities the Council values. They were telepathic, they could manipulate energy, they lived for thousands of years, they could merge with their technology. What happened to them? Rick asked. The swarm consumed them first, Chris replied. They created the perfect weapon to fight advanced species like themselves, but they were so advanced that they couldn't fight their own creation. The swarm was designed to counter exactly the abilities they relied on. The implications hit Rick like a thunderbolt. The Galactic Council's most advanced species had the same weaknesses as the swarm's original creators. Their telepathy could be blocked. Their energy powers could be absorbed. Their bio-integrated technology could be infected. But humans, with their primitive mechanical technology and unpredictable thinking, were immune to all of those advantages. Kate's fleet pushed deeper into swarm territory, winning battle after battle. Each victory proved the same thing. The aliens' greatest strengths were useless against this enemy, but humanity's supposed weaknesses were exactly what the galaxy needed. The species that had been declared too primitive to leave their home system had become the only hope for galactic civilization. General Matt Rodriguez stood on the bridge of his command ship, watching the largest fleet in galactic history prepare for battle. 3 months ago, he had been restricted to Earth's solar system. Now he commanded forces from dozens of worlds, all following human battle plans. The Void Swarm was retreating. For the first time since it had appeared, the mechanical plague was running away instead of consuming everything in its path. And it was running from humans. Matt's communication system buzzed with an urgent message from the Galactic Council. Speaker Vextal's crystal form appeared on the screen, but the proud alien looked different now. Smaller somehow, and definitely worried. General Rodriguez, Vextal said, "The emergency council session is ready to begin. Your presence is requested immediately." Matt nodded. "I'll be there in 1 hour. Keep the fleet ready for my return." The council chamber looked the same as it had 9 months ago, but everything else had changed. The same aliens who had once looked down at humans now watched Matt with respect and fear. Some seemed unable to meet his eyes. Dr. Nina Scott accompanied Matt to the meeting. She had spent months studying how different species fought the swarm, and her findings were disturbing. Every advanced species in the galaxy had the same weaknesses. "Honored Council," Matt began. "We need to talk about what we've learned." Vextal's crystal body seemed to dim. "We are listening, General." Nina stepped forward with her reports. "The swarm has been active for over 200 years. It didn't just appear 3 months ago. It's been moving through dark space, consuming civilizations that were too advanced for their own good." A nervous murmur went through the chamber. The octopus-like Narion delegate spoke first. "What do you mean, too advanced?" "Every species the swarm destroyed had powerful telepathic abilities," Nina explained. "The swarm learned to block mental communication and turn psychic powers against their users. Species that relied on telepathy found themselves unable to coordinate their forces. The tree-like synthetic representative shifted uncomfortably. And our bio-integration technology? The swarm infected it immediately," Nina continued. "Any technology that merged with biological systems became a weapon against its creators. The more advanced the integration, the faster the species fell." Matt took over the explanation. "The swarm was designed by a species called the Architects. They had all the same abilities you consider superior. They were telepathic, long-lived, and completely integrated with their technology." "What happened to them?" asked the butterfly-like being with rainbow wings. "They created their own destroyer," Matt replied. "The Architects built the swarm to fight other advanced species, but they made it too well. It turned on them first, learning from their own abilities and using those abilities to destroy them." The chamber fell silent. The implications were clear to everyone present. Captain Tom Anderson had been leading scouting missions into former swarm territory. His ships had found the ruins of dozens of civilizations, all of them far more advanced than anything in the HFY current Galactic Council. "The pattern is always the same," Tom reported through the communication system. "The more advanced a species was, the faster they fell. The swarm consumed their strongest abilities first, then used those abilities to destroy them completely." Admiral Susan Parker's voice joined the conversation from her flagship. "We've been tracking swarm movements for months. It always attacks the most powerful species first. It was saving the Council worlds for last because you were the biggest threat." "Were," Vextal repeated quietly. "The swarm didn't understand humans because we don't fit its programming," Matt explained. "It was designed to fight advanced species with natural abilities. We're not advanced in the ways it recognizes." Engineer Paul Miller had been working with alien scientists to understand how human and alien technologies could work together. His discoveries were changing everything. "Human technology is completely mechanical," Paul reported from his workshop. "When we combine it with alien materials and power sources, we get something neither side could create alone. The swarm can't adapt to it because it's not purely advanced or purely primitive. Captain Jim Foster's battle group had proven this theory in combat. His ships used human tactics and alien resources, creating hybrid systems that confused and defeated swarm forces. The swarm expects predictable behavior from advanced species, Jim reported. But humans are unpredictable by nature. We don't follow logical patterns because we can't read each other's minds. We have to guess and adapt constantly. Matt looked around the council chamber, seeing the fear and understanding in alien faces. You called us subpar because we couldn't do what you do naturally. But your natural abilities made you predictable. The swarm was built to fight exactly those abilities. Dr. Nina Scott added the final piece of the puzzle. Human unpredictability isn't a weakness. It's our greatest strength. We've spent our entire evolution learning to adapt and overcome limitations. That's exactly what's needed to fight the swarm. The council session continued for hours, but the important decisions were made quickly. The treaty restrictions on humanity were not just removed, they were completely reversed. Speaker Vextal formally addressed the chamber. The Galactic Council acknowledges its error in judgment. The human species will be granted full membership with emergency authority over all military operations. Matt accepted the new responsibilities, but he also made demands. Humans will help save the galaxy, but we do it our way. No more restrictions on where we can go or what we can build. No more treating any species as inferior. The aliens agreed, immediately. They had no choice. As the meeting ended, Matt realized the galaxy had learned a hard lesson. The species they had considered too primitive to matter had become their only hope for survival, and humanity was just getting started. Commander Steve Mitchell walked through the same council chamber where humans had been called subpar just 2 years ago. But everything was different now. The walls displayed symbols from Earth alongside alien writing. Human voices mixed with alien languages in the hallways. Most importantly, Steve wore the uniform of Supreme Defense Coordinator, the highest military position in galactic government. The Void Swarm was gone, destroyed by combined human and alien forces. But the victory had cost the galaxy dearly. Whole civilizations had been wiped out. Entire star systems were empty ruins. The survivors looked to humanity not just for protection, but for leadership. Dr. Carol White's innovation centers were now operating on 43 different worlds. She had been teaching alien species something they had forgotten over thousands of years of relying on natural gifts. She was teaching them how to think creatively. The hardest part, Carol explained to Steve during one of their regular meetings, is convincing them that limitations can be good things. They're so used to having unlimited telepathic power or endless lifespans that they never learn to work within boundaries. And working within boundaries makes you more creative? Steve asked. Absolutely. When you can't do something the easy way, you have to find a new way. Humans have been doing that our entire history. Captain Eddie Johnson's colony ships were launching every week now, carrying mixed crews of humans and aliens to rebuild the devastated worlds. The combination was proving more successful than anyone had imagined. Eddie's latest report showed remarkable progress. The Zephyrian colonists are using their crystal formation abilities to build structures, while human engineers design the blueprints. Narration water shapers are creating irrigation systems based on human agricultural plans. Everyone brings their natural abilities, but they're guided by human problem-solving methods. The results were amazing. New colonies were being established, faster than ever before, with designs and systems that no single species could have created alone. Ambassador Maria Santos was working on the political side of the new galaxy. The old council system, where species were ranked by their natural abilities, had been completely abandoned. Maria's new treaties focused on cooperation and mutual benefit, rather than superiority. Every species has something valuable to contribute, Maria explained to a gathering of alien diplomats. The key is finding ways to combine those contributions effectively. Humans specialize in seeing connections that others miss. Her work was paying off. Trade between species had increased dramatically. Scientific cooperation was producing breakthrough discoveries. Even cultural exchange was flourishing as different species learned from each other. Speaker Vextal, the crystal being who had once declared humans subpar, now served as Maria's assistant in diplomatic matters. The proud alien had learned humility the hard way. I have lived for 800 of your years. Vextel admitted during a private conversation with Maria. In all that time, I believed wisdom came from age and power came from natural gifts. Humans taught me that wisdom comes from learning and power comes from helping others succeed. Admiral John Parker's exploration fleets were pushing into regions of space that had been forbidden for millennia. The areas were dangerous, filled with radiation storms, gravitational anomalies, and ancient automated defenses left by long-dead civilizations. But human determination combined with alien abilities was proving unstoppable. John's ships used alien sensors to detect threats and human ingenuity to overcome them. They were discovering resources, technologies, and even surviving populations that had been cut off from the galaxy for centuries. We found another group today, John reported from the frontier. They've been hiding in a nebula for 300 years, afraid the Void Swarm would find them. When they saw human ships working alongside alien vessels, they knew it was safe to come out. These rescued populations brought new knowledge and perspectives to the growing galactic community. Each discovery proved that diversity and cooperation were more valuable than any single species' natural advantages. Dr. Linda Ross was documenting all these changes for the Galactic Historical Archives. Her job was to record how humanity had transformed from galactic outcasts to galactic leaders in less than 2 years. The most important change, Linda wrote in her final report, is not that humans gained power. It's that the entire galaxy learned to value different kinds of strength. Before the Void Swarm crisis, species were ranked by their natural abilities. Telepaths were considered superior to non-telepaths. Long-lived species looked down on short-lived ones. Bio-integrated technology was seen as more advanced than mechanical systems. But the crisis proved that natural advantages can become fatal weaknesses when you rely on them too heavily. The species that survived were those that learned to adapt, to work together, and to find new solutions to old problems. Steve Mitchell read Linda's report from his office overlooking the rebuilt council chamber. Through the windows, he could see construction crews made up of dozens of different species working together to expand the facility. The galaxy had learned its lesson about judging others by narrow standards. The Void Swarm had been designed by beings who thought their advanced abilities made them superior to everyone else. That pride had destroyed them and nearly destroyed everyone else. But humanity's supposed weaknesses had saved the galaxy. Their inability to read minds had made them better listeners. Their short lifespans had made them work harder and faster. Their mechanical technology had proven more reliable than bio-integrated systems. Most importantly, their history of overcoming limitations had prepared them to help others do the same. Steve's communication system chimed with reports from across the galaxy. New colonies were thriving. Trade networks were expanding. Scientific discoveries were accelerating. Former enemies were becoming allies. The species once declared too primitive to leave their home system had become the foundation of a new and better galactic civilization, and they were just getting started.